Okay, welcome to the Stellify podcast. I'm very excited. I've got my very beautiful friend, Skarlet Lu Realta, with me. Skarlet is not my typical guest. Skarlet is a contrarian adventurer, philosopher, and magic maker. She's also the founder of Liminal 9 Academy. Skarlet beckons us to dream. She beckons us into the realm of hyperdimensional soul magic, a quantum, multi-dimensional world where stories literally come alive in our hands, and we become the authors of our own reality. Skarlet has traversed some of the Earth's most obscure and mystical landscapes: Transylvania, the Arctic, ancient Albion, decoding mythic codes etched into the land and reflecting the hidden magic that resides within each of us. So called crazy by some and genius by others, Skarlet lives on the edge of perception, reminding us that life is a wonderful game. You just have to remember. So tonight, prepare to enter Skarlet's incredible world, to be shaken from perceived limitations and invited into the quantum adventure of remaking your reality through magic and story. So Skarlet, welcome to the Stellify podcast. It's been 2 years since I tried to get you on at the Drake Michigan project, and we've been trying for a little while since. So I remember when I spoke to you on the phone a couple of years ago, I was introduced by a mutual friend, and I said to you, where have you been all my life? Because I'm like thinking, I just want to know what this reality is, and you have all the answers. And you were telling me a story. I remember you were telling me a story of how you got into magic, and I hope you can share that with my audience because it blew me away. If you don't mind diving into a little bit of how you got into this, really, and your journey, really. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the first thing we should do is to say that I speak about magic and everyone has their own idea about what magic actually means. But for me, magic means when you live the impossible into becoming possible, when you actually create your own reality and you're able to bring what you think into reality, into your life. And it also means, by the very fact that you can do that, that you're dipping into, we could call it different dimensions and realms of reality as part of the process, but learning how to fully be present here, now, on planet Earth, bringing all of the magic that actually we're all born with here and present to actually help you to create a kind of life that you really want to live, actually. And I don't say this flippantly. I talk about it from a very, very deep place within us, because I think we all recognize where we're truly driven from, and it's not from the things that we might think we want. It's from a place that's very deep within us. I might call that your magic divinity. But yeah, backtracking to where it all began. Well, actually, to be perfectly honest, when I was a little girl, as you well know, until about the age of 3.5, I could see things before they happened. I could hear what people were thinking. I could feel things before anyone really understood what they were feeling. It was all very normal to me. And I think, like many of us, if we all look back, we probably will find, all of us, that we had incredible, what people tend to call paranormal skills or abilities, which, as a little kid, you wouldn't see it like that. It's just normal for you. But, I quashed it all to fit, because I'm sure, like many of the people listening right here, you suddenly think, crikey, people think I'm crazy, and you just squash it all so that you can conform and fit in. But, I grew up at school. I was literally talking about this literally yesterday. So at school, I never fit with anyone or anything. And though I had lots of friends, I would take myself off because I felt like a total misfit. I continually squashed all of these so-called weird things that were going on. Like, for example, I was in the back of the car with a friend, and we were driving along a road, and I had the foresight that a lorry was going to actually swing out of a side road and across the road. So I screamed at the parents, stop. They slammed the brakes, and sure enough, a lorry came across. So just that as an example, there were lots and lots and lots of stuff like that, but I put them out of my mind and I wouldn't go there to actually engage with them. And then I threw myself into a very serious, very grounded career. So I was a trader in London, trading derivatives and forex derivatives in London on the Life Exchange and the London Gold Futures Market, etc. And in all the back offices, and working with some of the big blue chip companies, and then went and worked for a big financial software company. So I had a big career, very successful, had the kind of life that everybody thinks is wonderful from the outside. You know, lots of houses, cars, money, amazing, like very hedonistic, really, if you think about it. I was actually married. I had 3 tiny little boys who I absolutely adored. But actually I was dying inside of me because I was living a life that was not true to me. I was in a marriage that had clearly broken down quite some time before. But as we all do, you keep going because you think that's what you need to do, and you conform to society. And meantime, I was dying and my body was showing it, basically. And then it was one incredibly snowy weekend in December in Edinburgh. And this was all the way back in 2005 now. And I was there with friends, and they wanted to go to Edinburgh Castle. And it was heavily snowing, and we walked up into the castle. And as I was walking up into the castle, my first time of being there, I felt really strange. And we walked up into this particular turret. It's called the Argyle Tower. And as we got to the top, I walked out into this bay window, and I was standing in this bay window looking out at Edinburgh below, so the very built up Edinburgh, and all of a sudden all the buildings were gone. It was just green. I felt that I was wearing this incredibly heavy sort of sackcloth robe thing, and I just stood there, and there was no sound, there was no glass in the window. It was not a stone built tower, but I was standing on this hill in this castle. And I probably was like that for about 20 seconds, though it felt like way longer. And I sort of came back to and walked down the turret in this absolute trance, came to the bottom of the turret. And anyone who's been to Edinburgh Castle will know what I'm about to say, because as you get to the bottom and walk out, there's a little shop there. And I walked into the shop, and at the time I didn't wear any jewellery. And I walked in, and in this girl's case was a ring. And this ring had a very ancient script on the ring, which I didn't know what it was at the time. But every part of me was screaming to put this ring on my finger. The script is a script called Om or Ogham script. So it's an ancient Druid Celtic script. So I put this ring on my finger, and the moment I put it on my finger, my mind travelled. It travelled back to around 700 AD.
Wow.
That's what it felt like to me, although I see time in a very different way now, because I look at it in a very quantum way. So the way I look at time now is that all time is occurring at once. Yeah. And I think I had a sense of it even then, if I'm honest, because it felt like everything was actually, I could feel my body back in the shop, and I could feel myself in this timeline at once. And in this timeline, when I sort of travelled back, I was standing in front of a man, and this man and I were performing extraordinary magic. And what I mean by that is all the elements, earth, air, fire, water, stars, were dancing and moving as we were calling them. And so in the middle of this that we were doing, I suddenly freaked out, a moment of freaking out. And as I did that, I then got pulled apart from this man in my, whatever you want to call it, vision, journeying, pulled apart from this man. And it was pretty grim what happened next. So I won't go into that now, but needless to say, I was pulled apart. And as this was all happening, I sort of came back to the turret in Edinburgh Castle to present day, shaking, absolutely shaking. I had this ring on my finger. I could not take it off. I just felt like I had to keep it on. So I bought this ring and I went home. Now, the man, I should also say, in this vision, whatever you want to call it, parallel timeline, was also my lover. So I get back home and I try and carry on with my ordinary life. And as I'm trying to carry on with my ordinary life, all sorts of stuff starts happening. So I have this freak accident where I smash 7 teeth. I have my car just blows up on the drive. I mean, as in not explodes, but blows up like. I have a glass pane, a shop window, like shatter all over me. All sorts of stuff like this is going on. So effectively what was happening was my reality was breaking big time. I didn't realize it then, but later on, I started to understand, you know, from a shamanic perspective, exactly what was going on, let's say. And then within hardly any time at all, I was in Ireland and I was with friends and they insisted we go to the Book of Kells at Trinity College. So in Dublin. Now, the Book of Kells is the oldest illuminated manuscript in the world, actually. And you go into this really dark place to go see it. And I was standing there, and as I was, the same thing happened again, looking over it. I travelled again. And when I travelled this time, it was same timeline, different scene this time, same guy, but more stuff was now happening. As I came back to then, I was really all over the place. I went running up into this library because the only way out is through this vast, in fact, I think it's the largest single chamber library in the world. It's like a Harry Potter library. It's amazing, Trinity College. I was running through this library and I could hear all the books talking to me. It was like everything from when I was tiny just suddenly resurged on a massive scale. Everything was talking to me. I was sort of running, holding my ears like this. Came out the other side. We ended up being in a bar, me and my friends. At this point, I just knew I just could not carry on in the life that I'd tried to stay in, because we all do this. We try and resist the call. But in the end, your soul is ridiculously powerful and it's going to blast you forwards. But of course, we always have a choice. What do we want to do? So in this case, I sort of ran into the bathroom in this bar, threw my head in my hands, screamed out to nothing in particular because I wasn't at all religious. I was not spiritual, not religious, but I actually, and you know me very well, I never call myself spiritual. What I will say is I'm magical. But I always knew, I always felt somehow connected, but deeply disconnected at that point to the magic of whatever you want to call that reality, the universe, the field, as I tend to say. And I just said, look, just send me this person from that I've been, because I'd actually at this point had someone coming into my dreams for about 2 years at that point. Literally walked back out of the bathroom into the bar door opened, and in walked the man, the exact duplicate of this man that I'd seen in my dreams. Anyway, he looks at me, I look at him, a little voice inside of me is going, don't you dare, you've got to stay where you are. But my intuition screamed at me, get out there now. And my intuition, basically, I was brilliant at following it for everybody else, but rubbish at actually listening to it for me. We know what that's like. But for this time, I just followed it, went outside, had this absolutely extraordinary experience, about 20 minutes with a man that we both knew we'd known each other forever. We were in our bodies, out of our bodies, and then we had this, it was Midsummer's Night, and basically it was this huge celebration, and it was like something out of a movie. These crowds came in and they pulled us apart. We had no way of contacting each other again. That was it. So he was my big catalyst for me. Came back to England, broke up with my husband immediately. But for the first 2 weeks when I was back, I literally felt like I was an alien that had been dropped in someone else's body. I was so alien to life. My whole life felt like it was somebody else's life. It was the strangest thing. The minute I got back, everything electrical was blowing up around me. I felt people or energy and things touching me the whole time, moving me. I'd literally walk out of my door and hundreds, this is no exaggeration, hundreds of white feathers would fall from the sky and start creating paths which I'd follow, and they would lead me to someone or something that would lead me to someone or something, and synchronicities started going crazy. Everything around me was alive and talking to me. I'd think something, a book would fall open and there would be an answer in front of me, or something would play out of the radio, or I'd see number plates, or I'd look up on a billboard, and I'd stand at night and say, what on earth is happening to me? What is going on? Like, what am I? And the sky would just blaze white over and over again, no thunder. I later found out this is a classic, what's called a shamanic awakening, all of this stuff.
Wow.
Really, it was like, for anyone who's ever watched The Matrix, someone had just handed me the red pill and I swallowed it. That's what happened. And literally at that moment, from that moment on, I knew that everything that I had been told and everything that I had thought until that moment was all an illusion. And that reality was something absolutely extraordinary, and it was pure magic, and absolutely everything was alive and dancing and creating with me and talking and co-create. Actually, as I said that, my perfectly still plant here just literally went tell you that. Now, within 2 weeks of this happening, I woke up one night with this story in my head. Now, no part of me had ever vaguely considered writing, but I came down through the night and I started to write the bones of this story. When I got to the end of it, I sat back and I looked at it and I thought, what the heck is that? A lot of the words in there I'd never heard of before, including the word alchemist. I didn't know what an alchemist was. I had absolutely no idea that an alchemist was someone that could actually, through the process of taking leaden thoughts and turning them into golden thoughts, would be able to take physical material reality and transform it into a new physical material reality. Little did I know that's what I was returning to at that point. And that was just the entry point deep into the magic of where I was going. So from the following day, I just knew I had to chuck absolutely everything, and follow this path inside of me that was screaming at me to follow it. And it was like I had no choice. Of course, we always have a choice, but it was so deep in me, it was as if I had no choice. And so I started to write this book in full. And as I started to write it, the people, the characters, the events, everything that I was writing started to physically materialize and show up into my life. And so at this point, I was thinking to myself, like, what the heck? How is it that what I am writing is becoming real? So this first book took me on, and as you know, I've written many since, took me on a crazy journey. It took me all around the globe. I ended up in Antarctica, actually. And in the process, I got to meet some of the most extraordinary people, from linguists to neurolinguists to quantum physicists to mystics from the mountains to people that had been studying the mysticism and the science of the heart, the mysticism and science of the brain, and all sorts of archaeologists, you name it. And everyone that I was meeting was sort of blown away, saying, how is it that what you're thinking, what you're writing is becoming real? And by this point, it wasn't just what I was writing, it's what I was thinking things and they were happening, or I was speaking things and they were coming into being. And I was just saying to everybody, I don't know. But unwittingly, they were all giving me pieces of information of their own experience that I was starting to piece together like a jigsaw puzzle. That honestly totally blew me away, because it wasn't just information. I was experiencing it. And that is this: that we are extraordinary. Humans are extraordinary. We are the most powerful creators of our reality. But the problem is, almost all of us have forgotten this. We've had it dumbed down and knocked out of us to the point where we become incredibly fearful of reality around us, and incredibly fearful and feeling like we have to conform. And it's that has been the ultimate power that has kept us disconnected from our magic, and actually, most importantly, disconnected with the wonderful magic of the universe and the field in which we live, because it's a great gift to be alive. And it's not until you walk a bit of a journey like this that you actually realize it. You know, gods would give anything to step into a body and be here on earth, let's be honest. So, and it's very easy to forget that, because we can get very dumbed down and disconnected and feeling like, you know, there's so many controlling powers and whatever out there, with forgetting that it's all come from this place inside of us where we have literally disconnected from the source of our wonder, from the source of our magic. And it's incredible how the moment you reconnect with that, all the things that you thought had power over you outside of you, they don't anymore. So my own personal journey was to continue for quite some years, actually following a particular carrot, because at that time I was absolutely bent on finding the man in this story, you could say. But actually that was the carrot, and the carrot was leading me deeper and deeper to understanding and remembering and reclaiming this magic. Now, you know, part of that process included me continually dipping into parallel timelines, let's say, where I was learning this magic and bringing it back fully into being able to live it now and experience it now. Along the way, gosh, I mean, we would need hours and weeks and months, probably years, to talk about it all. So I'm trying to sum it up really briefly. But along the way, I have been so blessed to meet some of the most extraordinary people who have really been prepared to live whatever it takes to be able to explore magic, which is what I have endeavoured and still do in every moment to do. And it's a huge leap to do it, because to live inside the realm of magic, or to live in that magic zone, is to live outside your comfort zone. And, you know, we can often think that living outside our comfort zone is about living without material things, but that's not what it's about at all. Living outside our comfort zone is being prepared to let go of everything we thought about ourselves, everything we believed reality to be, everything we're being told, everything we're being shown, and to be prepared to take a big leap and just say, okay, just universe, show me. Really. So anyway, from my own perspective, I went on to write lots more books, and every book I wrote would then become real consistently, and I'd have people writing me from all over the world saying, oh my word, this is happening. And I'd say, well, you've read the book, you know what's happening, you're all good. Me, in the middle of all of this, I then, so backtracking, when I was a tiny girl, I used to have a guy sitting on my bed that only I could see. And I'm sure many people listening will have had this, somebody that only they could see, that they used to talk to. And it was one of the things I had to shut down when I was really tiny so that I would fit in. And he used to say to me, one day we'll meet. And he's taught to me all about magic. And many years later, as a result of a book that I was, or a trilogy of books I'd just finished writing, I ended up in over in Hollywood. Basically, Hollywood had reached out to me and they wanted to make a trilogy of movies of this particular trilogy of books that I'd written. I decided for many reasons to pull out, because for me, those books are very much my soul's journey. So it was very important to me that the integrity of that story stayed intact. So for many reasons, I decided to pull out. But I figured, maybe I'll do it myself. So I went about raising lots of cash so that I could go and make these movies. And the result of it was I ended up in Hollywood at this big event where all these people had come along to meet me. And long story cut very short is I ended up meeting this guy there. And the moment we met, we were gobsmacked. And he'd had, when he was a little boy, this woman sitting on his bed saying, one day we'll meet, talking to him all about magic. The company's the same as mine. He was literally speaking the words that the main character in my books was in this trilogy was speaking, unbeknown to me at that point. But then he revealed he'd also written this book, and it was the exact same book with the exact same milestones and characters called different names, but his was from the future to now, mine was from the past to now, and they were both doing the same thing. And it was wild. The journey that unfolded between he and I was absolutely wild. And from the moment we met, the paranormal was off the Richter scale between us. He was a huge music producer in Hollywood. And so that took me for 2 years on a mind-blowing journey with him, which led me to write a book called Moxie's Pact at the time, which was written because he asked me to write it. He said, you must write our way forwards because your words create reality. As you know very well. And there's a lot more to it that I haven't gone into, but there are so many crazy synchronicities that where we'd physically called each other across space and time to meet. That exposed me to through that journey, it exposed me to some of the most mind-controlling, serious cults, you could say, that exist on Earth. Which at the time, and I'd met them along the way. So I'd met the heart of Scientology, the heart of Freemasonry, all this stuff. And I kept kind of questioning, why am I meeting? This is crazy. What's going on here? Like the heads and the hearts. And through this journey, it brought me home to me, actually, because it made me realize that what was happening was I was consistently creating into my reality to meet people that were using the power of the mind and the magic in the hands that we have to manipulate reality through the power of the mind, to actually manipulate control. And I realized the reason that I was doing this was because I'd been so scared myself that I would actually use this magic that I was experiencing in every moment to do exactly that to others. That was my own inner fear. And people for a long time have been saying to me, please open up an academy, teach us this stuff. And I said, there's no way. I am not about to go and place in someone else's head this idea of yet another theory, another philosophy, another, way of being, when I was absolutely terrified in myself. Because I knew that your words create your reality, your belief systems create your reality. And of course, people around me were saying, but that's the point, you're helping people see that. And I was like, no. But through this journey that lasted about 2 years, I came to this point where I realized, wow, so magic is like a knife. You could give someone a knife and they can go and carve something beautiful. They can go and kill something. It's got nothing to do with the knife at all. It's all to do with the person's choice. So if you ask me, there's no such thing as good magic or black magic. What there is magic. It's what the person chooses to do with that magic is up to them. And so it really profoundly and powerfully took me on a journey to learn to trust myself. Because at the end of the day, I knew this was all about, would I make a choice to manipulate others through the power of the magic that I knew was real, because I was experiencing it in every moment, and I still do. And I came to be able to relax because I realized, no, I'm not going to. And as soon as that happened, I stopped meeting mind-controlling cults. I stopped meeting people and things that wanted to exercise extreme control over me because I didn't need to anymore. Right. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not to say that I haven't continually met what we might call challenge, because I see that as opportunity. So the more you throw yourself out of your comfort zone, the more you're going to create something that you most fear, because actually it turns out to be your very best friend, because it's the very thing that's inviting you to become something greater. So but what happened was my whole inner compass changed. And at that point, so that was back in 2015, I opened up Liminal 9 Academy. And so that was the point when I finally relaxed and felt, okay, it's cool, because all I'm going to do is share with people. It's up to them what they do with it, really. So yeah, that's been a lot of me talking there.
There's so many questions, and I know we're only going to do a short podcast tonight, and we're going to do more short podcasts in the future, because I'm sure people listening will have a million questions, and I've got quite a few on the tip of my tongue. But a couple of things before, because I know it's going to be a short one and we're going to wrap up soon. Why do you think, why are we so disconnected? What is that? I know we go through life. Generally, our parents could be disconnected, and we are taken through school, which disconnects us further, teaches us how to go to work and behave and conform and everything else, and yet we never find our true selves. And I know you talk about that we're creating our reality, and we're creating our reality all the time. So are we creating that challenge from an early age to not conform? And the other thing I'm thinking about is when you talk about Freemasons and this, that, and the other, is there a reason why this knowledge is kept, kept hidden, if you like, esoteric wise? Because with a disconnected person, they could do damage, they could do harm. So there's two questions in one there, really.
Yeah. So I think the first question, why are we disconnected? Well, I think there's two ways to look at this. First of all, if you're an energy, a life force, and that's what we all are, so everything that's matter isn't really matter. It's information wrapped around some energy, basically, that gives it a direction to go and move. I'm not going to start diving deep into the quantum at this stage. We can save that for another podcast, and then we can go right in if everyone wants to.
Yeah.
But essentially, everything, you pick that up and you think, okay, that's a cup, but actually it's not a cup. That's energy that's wrapped around with a system of entropy, some data, some information that's actually turning it into what I perceive as a cup.
Yeah.
So, you think about this, you're a soul, an energy, a life force, and you want to put yourself through a super exciting adventure. The first thing you're going to do when you put yourself in a body is to forget that you're a soul and that you're a life force and energy. Because if you remember it, then if you're fully cognizant of that from the get-go, you're not going to have the chance to fully immerse yourself into this physical reality and experience things in that physical reality that become very important for you to be able to set up a whole series of learning and evolution. Because let's be honest, what's the point of anything unless we're expanding and growing? Energy wants to expand and grow. So, for example, if you land on planet Earth and from the get-go, you're infinite. You're stripping away a whole load of very important experience inside a body. It's a bit like, I'm a game player. For anyone here that's gamed at all, you're playing the game, but actually when you're inside that game, the more you can actually embody the avatar in the game, the more you believe that you are that avatar and you're running around in that gaming world, and you really do have crazy creatures chasing you, etc., the more you're going to actually grow from the experience. Now, at some point, the avatar running around is going to suddenly say, hang on just a moment. And various things are going to start happening, because at this point, the gamer is going to say, it's time for you to wake up and realize that you are the avatar, but you're also me who's playing this game. And if we can because look, the gamer doesn't know what it's like running around in that world. They've got no context. They don't know what it feels like to feel like they're in threat inside that world. They've got no idea. The whole point they're playing that game is so that they can grow and evolve and create more and more amazing games. And they can't do that unless they have that experience. So, and the one inside, the avatar that's running around says, hey, hang on a minute, it's all right for you out there. So this one out here can't grow, but equally this one in here says, hey, you can't just throw that because you don't understand what it's like. So actually, this is what we need to do. And this is what's called feed forward, feedback loop between reality. So at some point, we all wake up. Now, whether we choose to stay woken up, I know some people don't like that term, awaken. You can use whatever term you like. But at some point, we have this realization that we are not just the one running around on planet Earth having an experience. We are the one that sits outside this reality, moving us around inside planet Earth. Now, it can come as a tiny moment. For some people, it will never come more than a flicker of a fraction of a moment. But when it hits, it's life-shattering.
Yeah.
It changes everything. And it's at that moment, everything that was complete disconnection changes. But, you know, I often hear people ask this, well, once you've done it, you've done it. And the answer is no. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep choosing it. It's not a once and done. You have to keep choosing it. You'll have this extraordinary experience, whatever it happens to be, but you have to keep choosing to show up to that. So otherwise what will happen is you'll slip back into disconnection. If you choose to stay connected, then that connection will grow and grow until you get to a point where it's a near impossibility to slip back, really. And you actually, weirdly, you look back then and you think, wow, I used to think it would take all this courage to step beyond this, but I now realize it took way more courage to stay where I was before. But you don't realize that then. It's kind of like realizing it's all a game.
Yeah.
So that disconnection, and of course, if we look in our world, there's so much in our world that is brilliant at perpetrating that disconnection. Of course, if you think about it, story, word, thought creates reality. Of course, it's fueled by emotion. We can go into all of that another time, you know, the science behind that. But because it is our emotions that shape our DNA and change our reality, but it's the thoughts that actually, you know, trigger those emotions in the first place. So given that our thoughts are setting up our world, if we think about the thoughts that we are pummeled with day in, day out. I mean, I don't know how many people here listening to this listen to news. And I'm not just talking about newspapers or the BBC or anything like that. I'm talking about they will give over their entire energy to particular belief systems, to particular news feeds. Those news feeds can be on YouTube. They can be channels on YouTube. You know, I'm choosing to believe that everyone in the universe is out to get me. Well, that's become your belief system. It becomes your reality. You have the choice. You choose where to place your energy and what to put your belief system in. But the one thing that I can say from my own experience, hands down, and it's unfaltering, is what you choose to believe is what's going to show up for you. So whatever you choose is up to you, but make sure it's something that you want to experience as your reality. So the disconnect is that the media and the noise will consistently throw stories at us. And if you give your energy over to those stories, you're giving your energy to disconnect. If you pull your energy out of that, if instead of listening to all that stuff, you go and walk in the woods, you go and sit and have the sun on your face, or let yourself feel the rain, listen to the birds. I know this sounds ridiculous and crass, but it's not.
No,
the universe speaks in messages and nature and wildness around us. But we've got to be ready to hear it. So the disconnect is something that on a very deep level is happening because we are allowing it to happen. We have the choice to pull back from that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. And and it sounds so simple, but I think people get addicted to the disconnect as well.
Very much.
It becomes that feedback loop is almost something that they want then as well. You know, they're looking for the trauma, they're looking for the anger, they're looking for that world that's for whatever reason, and we don't enjoy it, but it becomes, you become immersed into that, and then you then mirroring, or it seems to be a mirror then, your internal world is what you're seeing outside all over. One question I do have though is, because there are bad people in this world, and obviously there are not bad magic or white magic, like whatever you say, it's just magic. But there are people that are so disconnected that do like to do harm for whatever reason on others. You know, and it confuses me, because it doesn't feel human to me, because I'm just not built like that, you know. But there are, you know, you see it around you sometimes. Only not that long ago, there was a guy attempted murder 2 doors down in our street. I don't know what drives a human being to do things like that. You know, but for me, it almost seems like there are powerful people in this world that understand the power of the magic, and they, like you said, you were frightened of using it to manipulate people. So there are people using this to manipulate and to gain wealth, if you like, financial or power or whatever, and keeping people asleep almost. That's what it feels like to me anyway, and I might be wrong. It might be because that's my hero's journey, where I'm trying to wake people up. But that's what it feels like to me.
Well, I think this is such a big conversation. We probably should pop it all in another podcast, but
I think we should.
Essence, because it is, as you mentioned, the hero's journey, and this is really what we need to look at to explore that and break it open, really. But what I think the thing is that what's really key is to keep your focus on the world that you're choosing. And, you know, I can't say what goes on inside of someone's mind to choose to go and harm somebody. I can say there's no part of me that would choose to go do that.
Same here, yeah.
So, and I can also say that I would only ever choose for everybody to be the happiest, the most fulfilled, the most honoured, respected, loved that they could be. And so the more I keep my focus on that, and I keep my energy on that, and the more I show up using everything that I am to be that, the more chance there is that that's going to actually grow and evolve. And I think in the simplest terms, that's what I would say, is keep all your focus on your own choices of where you want to go. Because the problem is, as soon as you start giving energy to this is wrong and that's wrong and this is wrong and that's wrong, the very fact that the energy is traveling to those places is going to grow it. So you need to think about a story like this. A story cannot survive without your energy. Your energy is its lifeblood. So every time you give your energy to a negative story, you're feeding it and you're giving it a chance to grow and become something, become a reality. So if you can keep your energy solely focused, and you know, this sounds really simple, but we all know it's a challenge. I mean, this is why we have Liminal 9 Academy, because we go deep into this through the magic of the alchemist, the magician, the contrarian, and ultimately the architect. And we do start off with simple. It is simple, and when you understand what simple actually is and what it means, it's mind-blowing. And it does take enormous courage when you're actually questioning everything to actually take the leap. But when you do take the leap, it's like one of those, it's like, you know, I can't ride a bike. Well, you don't know that until you get on that bike and you start riding it. And once you start to try it, the more you cycle, the more you are comfortable riding the bike until in the end you don't know what it's like not to ride that bike. It's the same thing with reconnecting and with coming home to your magic. Once you take the leaps and you show up and you consistently show up for it, it's amazing how fast it changes everything. And there's never going to be a time where there won't be things trying to pull you back out of it, because the whole point of a hero is a hero never grows if they don't face challenge. There's no way for a hero to grow. That's the nature of the human on a journey of evolution and growth. We have to confront, that's the way all creation comes into being, through friction. It's never going to come into being if nothing's, nothing changes if nothing changes. So for us to change, evolve and grow, we have to meet something that can feel incredibly uncomfortable. We have a choice. We either sit and say, woe is me, and this has happened to me, or we say, wow, this is intriguing. I wonder why I've created this to show up at this moment. What beauty is this bringing me, even if on a human level it doesn't feel like it? Because if you go in with that state of being, you'll guarantee that what will happen the other side of it will probably completely blow you away.
And before we wrap up, I'll just say that I've been very blessed that I've been involved and been included in your course on Liminal 9. It changed my life because it helped my mental health massively. Whereas I started to recognize and became more aware and became more of the observer, and understanding that actually I am much more than what my original perception was allowing. And even though that journey continues, and I'm trying to bring some of that to Stellify, hence why I was so desperate to get you on the podcast, it is life-changing. The teachings that you put out there are quite incredible. The wisdom that you put out there, there's just in your delivery, the depth of the material, it's off the wall. It really is. It's just wonderful, and I'm very honored to know you, Skarlet. And I know you've just finished another book as well, so I don't know if you want to mention your latest book, and I can maybe play the trailer before we go, because I know you've got a lovely new trailer regarding that book. But if you can maybe just have a little brief about what that book's about and where people can reach you, buy the book, and how they can get to the academy.
Well, so there you go. This is a not for resale copy. This is book 1 of a 7-book series. It's the first time I've ever written for young adults. Anyone who loves sort of Harry Potter, Narnia, Earthsea, that kind of genre, it's very much where it's set. However, what I will say is everything that I've ever walked, everything I've ever lived, everything I've ever written has led me and readied me to be able to bring this now. In itself, the way this dropped in is a very magical story. Talking of tragedy and how you face it, this entire series dropped in 3 hours after my mother, who I loved dearly, just suddenly and shockingly passed. And within 3 hours, in the most surreal way, I was walking with my 3 sons in London, actually, obviously devastated, because we just had to pull the plug on her life support system that she'd been on for 24 hours. And just in this most bizarre and random moment, it just sort of came out. These things came out of me, and we all started laughing. And it was so strange. And I kind of felt in that moment, that's Mom here as well. And this character came through that was the great mother of magic that just came through in that moment. And in the couple of days that followed, amongst this, great grief and shock, so many things started just dropping through. So the place where the great mother of magic lived, the world and what it was called, what was happening. Of course, at that point, my father had actually passed away a few years before that. So my 2 brothers and my sister and I were orphaned. And so the book begins with these 4 orphaned kids who are literally put on a train to Scotland to a mysterious guardian in a remote castle in Scotland. And when they get there, all sorts of wild and amazing stuff starts happening, and they're not who they thought they were at all. And before long, they fall into a magical world, and this is where it all begins. It's a huge series. It's vast. I'm not quite sure how I'm holding it all in my being at the moment, because there are so many mythologies and worlds and realms and everything in it. But at the heart of it, it's probably the most simple and most powerful way I've ever been able to bring the magic that is what I live in every moment into something for somebody to actually reach. And of course, if you're speaking to young adults, it needs to be more accessible than ever. And because of that, by simplifying it, it's become more powerful than ever. It's a beautiful, beautiful, incredible story. Very deep, very amazing, very, you've got the huge protagonist, the huge, opponents. There's a whole world. Imagine a ministry of magic, and it's that big on the, the big thing that's taken over inside the magical world that's suppressing magic and all the rest of it. But in the end, the twists around it are so vast. And the ultimate aim of the books, of all 7 books, which is going to be huge, what I'm doing with it all, is actually to return, because this is what happens with the kids unwittingly. They return magic, they return all the rights to the people and the peoples of all the realms. They return the innocence of just being alive in the wonder of magic back to earth. And they act as a conduit through which to unite all beings everywhere, all life everywhere, home to magic. So that's sort of the heart of what the entire series is about. But it's very vast. It's it's huge. It's very sort of, Tolkien meets George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones meets Harry Potter meets, it's vast, but I love it. And wild and wonderful characters and creatures. So basically this book, the official publication date is October the 20th. So be able to get it on book 1, which is called The Book of Destiny. Be able to get it from Amazon on October 20th. And book 2 will be out in January, actually, with book 3 by middle of next year. And so, you have a trailer for this. And Liminal 9 Academy, well, how to reach Liminal 9 Academy. And so perhaps you could drop something on the link.
I will definitely put it in the show notes so people can get to your website and they can have a look. I think there's a quiz on there on the if I remember right. I remember doing that about 18 months ago.
Yes.
And then let's see if they're ready for the magic realm, eh? So, but should we play your trailer?
Yeah.
Let's put it on. Let's see if we can get this on here. Lovely. It's exciting, isn't it?
There's going to be plenty more trailers where that one's come from.
Skarlet, I can't thank you enough for coming on. There's some very important messages in just this, what I am sure is just going to be part 1 of the Stellify Skarlet podcast series, because there's a lot to talk about.
It's a lot. Oh, it's been awesome. It's been lovely doing this with you.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
so much for having me.
always a pleasure chatting with you, Scarlett, always. So, yeah, if anybody wants to know more about what Scarlett's offering, check the show notes below, and you'll have a link to Liminal 9. And yeah, and the book's out in October, I think you said. So get your copies, because it's going to be a special book. Thank you, Scarlett.
Thank you.